President Trump's mass deportation raids, named Operation Aurora for the city in Colorado, have led to chaos and violent clashes across the country. Today, a woman from Colorado was killed by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. Witnesses say 37-year-old Renee Good was following traffic directions by agents. The Trump administration says Good was a domestic terrorist who tried to hit a federal agent with her vehicle. There is video of this shooting from a number of angles. Should note, we are not going to be showing the moment when Good is shot and killed. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem initially said that immigration agents got their vehicle stuck in the snow and were attempting to push it out when they were attacked by the driver who tried to run them over. Witness video shows the vehicle sitting on dry pavement when ICE agents approached the civilian vehicle. Witnesses tell NBC News that the driver, Good, was simultaneously ordered to drive away and to stop. She backs up and drives forward. An agent tries to open her door. Another agent draws and fires into the SUV, killing her. President Trump called Good a professional agitator who, quote, violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer. It is not clear from the video what, if any, injuries the officer actually sustained. President Trump said, quote, it is hard to believe he is alive, but is now recovering in the hospital. Later today, Secretary Noem said the officer was hit by the vehicle, went to the hospital, but was quickly released and declined to discuss his injuries. Minneapolis' mayor says he wants ICE to leave the city, that they are making things unsafe.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is
This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism.
Protests have followed the shooting in Minneapolis today and into the evening. Democratic Governor Tim Walz is urging peace and calm, saying that he does not want violent reactions to give President Trump any reason to put armed troops into city streets or to invoke the Insurrection Act, which would allow Trump to use the military against Americans across the country. Here is what we know about Renee Good. She's 37 years old, originally from the Colorado Springs area, according to her family, who also told us that she is a widow with a young child. Her late husband's father told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that now there's, quote, nobody else in his life and that he's coming to Minneapolis to get his grandchild. A social media account that we believe belongs to Good describes her as a poet, a writer, and a mom. The violent confrontations that we have seen surrounding mass deportation raids have repeatedly involved agents using force against drivers and people in vehicles. The New York Times says immigration officers have fired on at least 9 people in vehicles in the past 4 months, each time saying it was self-defense. Claims that have often, sometimes immediately, come under question, as in this case. I want to bring in our Angeline McCall, who covers immigration for us, including these deportation raids, to tell us more about what we have seen in terms of force in Colorado.
Right, it's part of the discussion after the shooting in Minneapolis, Kyle, and it's really around what we've seen in terms of the number of incidents across the country involving ICE with people behind the wheel, either community members, activists, or drivers they want to detain. So we've reported on multiple incidents here in Colorado, including one in Black Forest this summer, where officers fired 3 shots into a car after ICE said that 2 people tried to ram their vehicle into agents during an operation, which is very similar to what they're claiming in this Minneapolis shooting death. However, no one was hit in that Black Forest incident during the summertime. We also reported on another operation in Alamos in September when officers were detaining a man following a court date. In the video, you can see officers approach the car with guns drawn and then break a window to get the man out of the car. And the mother, who was a passenger in the car, warned officers before they broke that window, Kyle, that there was a newborn baby in that car as well.
One thing they always tell you to do around police officers is be predictable, right? Don't be unpredictable, right? But at the same time, I think people have an idea of how officers typically act in situations, especially, right, if you're just trying to drive by something or whatever, and you get a direction from an officer. The hope is that everybody's predictable, right?
Right, and I think that, certainly in a post-COVID world, when we saw lots of protests, certainly we know sometimes how police are going to react. CBP and ICE, as well as DHS, they operate under different policies, and something that we were looking into earlier today was just generally of what the policy is with a moving vehicle when it comes to ICE officers. And the general guideline is that they are not supposed to discharge a weapon into a moving vehicle. Of course, there's exceptions. Physical protection is one of them. That's what they're claiming in this particular Minneapolis shooting death. Of course, we know several local leaders there have taken issue with that argument.
All right, Angeline McCall, appreciate your expertise. Thank you. Republican leaders and law enforcement in Douglas County are pushing ahead with their plan to fight crime by punishing some crime victims, specifically stores that are victimized by shoplifters. County commissioners, the sheriff, and the district attorney want to fine those businesses if they don't report shoplifters. Our Marshall Zellinger asked them whether a small business in town is going to face the same punishment for being a crime victim as a big box store.
TVs and electronics, even diapers, can be expensive if you stop to pay for the items before leaving the store. That would be stealing. But soon, 900 stores in unincorporated Douglas County, like Target, GameStop, even the nail salon, they could be fined if the county finds out they were shoplifted from and did not report it. Will there be a carve-out for mom-and-pop businesses?
Actually, having just come from a local retailer who is running a mom and pop right here on Wilcox Street, no.
Republican County Commissioner George Teal and the two other Republican commissioners support fining businesses for not reporting theft. Teal says the target is really big box stores and not local store owners who tell him they call for help no matter how small the theft.
When we talk to small businesses, we're not hearing from them their concerns about complying.
During a work session yesterday with retailers, a Walgreens rep described for the commissioners, the sheriff, and the district attorney a common scenario.
The question that we're always going to get is, well, what did they take? I don't have a clue. We didn't have people all over the store monitoring that particular person. Which way did they go? Can't tell you that either. Then oftentimes what we'll hear directly from dispatch is, I'm sorry, we're not even going to send an officer out. There's no point.
If as long as we have reasonable suspicion that a crime took place, you let our dispatch center know. And you call me directly. I'll give you my mobile number if they tell you that they're not going to respond. That should never happen in Douglas County.
The Walgreens rep then praised Douglas County for being responsive to all calls for theft.
I'm not a big government guy. I'm not looking for the government to step in and be coercive on parts of our lives that we don't need to be. So
that
I'm
not big government guy is Republican District Attorney George Brockler. He would have no role in businesses that don't report theft. That would be a county attorney issue. His involvement is to let businesses know that if they call for help and someone gets caught, he'll make sure they go to jail, even for petty theft.
I don't want the victims of theft to exercise discretion as to when to consider it a big enough deal to call law enforcement.
There is a group called the Organized Retail Crime Association, made up of retailers, loss prevention staff, and they partner with law enforcement. At a conference of reps from western states, I'm told there was a concern that fines generated from the potential Douglas County ordinance would be an example to other states and even Congress to target big retailers who are seen as negligent in reporting theft. Commissioner George Teal told me he is not using this as a test balloon for policies nationwide.
So if the intent is not to target small businesses, have they carved out small businesses in the ordinance?
No, because the answer is small businesses are going to call, so they're going to exempt themselves by calling every time.
So you're under this ordinance, but don't worry, you'll be okay. All right, Marshall Zellinger, thank you. Federal fire investigators are coming to town to search for the cause of the largest fire that Denver's seen in years. That apartment complex under construction, property the size of a city block, that burned Friday night at Leetsdale and Forest. Denver Fire says 100 firefighters responded to keep that fire from spreading into neighboring homes. About 20 city blocks were evacuated. One firefighter was injured, treated, and released. That 5-alarm fire and the quick work by firefighters is a reminder of what firefighters across Colorado, paid and volunteer, do daily to protect our lives and property. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign is an opportunity for us to show our appreciation. Let's buy some crucial equipment that Denver firefighters need and also help other firefighters around the state when they're injured on the job. Our donations this week will be split evenly between two nonprofits that serve Colorado's firefighters. The Denver Fire Department Foundation will use their proceeds to buy new thermal imaging cameras. DFD's using older ones that are not as effective for search and rescue operations. In fact, they used them in last week's 5-alarm fire. Newer thermal imaging cameras that currently are not in the city's budget have far better resolution in low visibility environments. The other half of our donations will go to the Colorado Professional Firefighters Foundation. They're an all-volunteer organization that provides aid and financial support to firefighters and their families in the case of an injury or a death or a service-connected illness like cancer. Should mention here, you may know my colleague Corey Rose is a longtime supporter of that organization. She sits on that nonprofit's board. I alone selected the Colorado Professional Firefighters Foundation as one of this week's recipients for their work. All the donations that we raise are going to be split 50-50 without overhead costs, thanks to the generous support of the Denver Foundation. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. We'll send you that link to donate. You know that even chipping in $5 helps, because 5 years of pooling your $5 donations has raised $17 million for nonprofits in this state. And you know I will never ask you to give alone, so I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. 7,000 of you have signed up to make a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. You put in your info one time, pick a donation amount, and that donation's automatically split among all the nonprofits we feature. In recent months, recurring givers added an astonishing $50,000 in donations each week.
Venezuela is a small percentage of the total oil market. It's probably 1% or less than 1% of total oil.
President Trump says America is seizing Venezuela's oil and he will decide where the money goes. We went to energy experts in Colorado to see how that might impact our state's oil and gas industry. Next. A teacher from Arvada High School is accused of photographing and filming students performing sex acts and then selling some of those videos. And there are real questions about how Patricio Illanes ever got hired in the first place. Because according to court documents, Illanes faced similar allegations in 2023 at Erie Middle School in the St. Vrain district. In that case, he was accused of filming students in the classroom after he'd convinced them to take off their shirts and shoes and socks. Administrators decided this guy should never be allowed to work in the district again. But yet he still got hired in the Jeffco School District to work at Arvada High. A Boulder County Sheriff's investigator wrote in court documents that Jeffco Schools said that St. Vrain administrators never provided info about their investigation. St. Vrain said Jeffco Schools never asked. On top of that, St. Vrain administrators told police that a court order would have prevented them from telling Jeffco about the allegations made against that teacher. There is still a ton that we are working to sort out about what appears to be a colossal failure to protect children. We're trying to talk with leaders in both school districts for a start, but they're not responding to our questions.
And weather-wise, we have a weather impact alert for tomorrow and for Friday morning. It will snow. During the day tomorrow, that snow will be low impact. That snow will stick on roads and most area surfaces tomorrow night and to Friday morning for us. So that's certainly the thing we're watching for with that weather impact alert that we've issued. And again, that goes into effect for tomorrow. But the worst of that snow is going to be for tomorrow night and into on Friday morning. So let's take a look at that timing of that snowfall. Here we go. We'll see that snow develop for us in the metro area and I-25 corridor tomorrow morning. That snow will really not stick during the day tomorrow, but as we head through the day, we'll pull in some colder air. And once we get after dark tomorrow, those ground temperatures will cool enough for that snow to really stick on roads and make things slick just in time for that Friday morning commute. That snow done mid to late morning on Friday. I always like to look at it this way. Probabilities, 1 to 4 inches, the most likely scenario for us in Denver. Still a 30% chance that we end up with 5 inches or more. Most likely scenario that we end up with 1 to 4 inches in town, higher amounts west and south. Weather impact alert for tomorrow and for Friday morning. Then we dry out and warm up as we get into the early part of next weekend. If I didn't cover your town, here's a better way to look at it. Snow odds for us Thursday and Friday. Denver and Castle Rock with the highest odds for seeing an inch or more of snow out of this event.
President Trump says Venezuela's oil belongs to him and he'll sell and divvy up the cash. How could that impact Colorado's oil and gas industry? That's next. Hey, also a reminder, you can catch Next streaming each night, 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. And Next is a podcast. It's the show, but you don't have to look at my horrendous beard. President Trump says the U.S. is going to take Venezuela's oil, sell it, and he will decide where the money goes. We were curious how that surge in supply and the U.S. president controlling it might impact Colorado's oil and gas industry. Here's Spencer Soischer.
It's going to get that crude moving again and sell it.
Colorado oil and gas executive turned U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright says the U.S. has a plan for Venezuela's oil.
And then indefinitely going forward, we will sell the production that comes out of Venezuela into the marketplace.
Those comments align with President Trump's post on Truth Social that Venezuela will, quote, turn over 30 to 50 million barrels of oil, and that money will benefit people in the U.S. and Venezuela. But in a follow-up interview today, Wright clarified where that oil money would go.
We are just controlling the marketing and the flow of funds into Venezuela, so those funds can be used to better the conditions of the Venezuelan people.
If a bunch of crude ended up in the U.S., what would that mean for Colorado's producers?
Really doesn't have an impact.
Yeah, I don't really think it has big implications for Colorado.
Both CU Denver Energy Management professor Michael Orlando and DU Global Supply Chain professor Jack Buffington study these kinds of things.
Oil markets are global, and Venezuela is a small percentage of the total oil market. It's probably 1% or less than 1% of total oil.
It's overstated in the sense that the headline we always hear about is they have the most reserves. That doesn't come out of the ground immediately.
Wright described the infrastructure in Venezuela as in poor shape and indicated it would take a significant investment to start producing oil at the levels they want.
What's produced in Venezuela is a heavy, more sour crude, and it's a little more intensive when it comes to refining.
And Colorado's Oil and Gas Association points out that even if the market was eventually flooded with Venezuelan oil, there isn't widespread infrastructure in this state to refine it.
What we produce here in Colorado is considered a light sweet crude. It's a little easier to refine.
While production is still happening in Colorado, development has slowed drastically. The academic folks we talked to today said that's more about weakening demand. The Oil and Gas Association blamed it on regulations in Colorado. They said they're more focused on that than on the Venezuelan oil stuff right now, Kyle.
Well, it certainly is a new wrinkle, and something tells me that this plan might be one that we sort out on the fly. Spencer Soisher, thank you. Back with the feedback next. The skill and bravery of Colorado's firefighters were on full display last week when they made quick work of that blazing 5-alarm construction fire in Denver. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign is one opportunity to support the firefighters who protect us. Our donations this week are going to be split 50-50 between two nonprofits. The Denver Fire Department Foundation will use our generosity to buy new thermal imaging cameras. The department has some older ones that don't work as well. New ones are not in the budget right now. They cost about $6,000 a piece, so we're going to be able to buy a couple of them for sure. Then the Colorado Professional Firefighters Foundation will use our donations to provide financial support to firefighters and their families when they face tragedy, and that includes injuries or illnesses that are linked to their work in the fire service. You can scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to join me and a bunch of others in supporting the firefighters who protect Coloradans. This, a note from a viewer named Steve who says, thank you for supporting Colorado's firefighters. As a retired volunteer firefighter from rural Pennsylvania, I know what a difference both low-tech and high-tech gear can mean. Yeah, Steve, they were using the current thermal imaging cameras in the search effort on that apartment complex fire, that construction site fire, because they were trying to make sure that people were not in there. Newer cameras are going to have much better resolution, and they're going to talk to each other a lot better. It'll allow for quicker rescues, and hopefully we can save lives. This, a note from a viewer named Kathy, who simply says, Kyle, please stand a little closer to your razor. That's the nicest way to say it so far. See you next time.